Hello and welcome to the very first Follow the White Rabbit podcast. My name is Susie Jones and I decided to put everything that I do under one umbrella to make my life simple and more streamlined, which actually is really important in today's busy life, isn't it? So I thought I would start with knitting. Knitting has been a passion of mine for many years. I've not always done it. Life has often taken over. But I started knitting when I was very young with my mother, and who was a beautiful knitter, very precise, not like me. Okay, there were no mistakes in her knitting. There are always mistakes in mine. And I've just loved the creative flow of knitting. But what's truly interesting is that since I've been watching podcasts online, international women and men knitting, I've discovered so much more about this art form. You see, I saw it more as a utilitarian thing, not an artistic form. Yet there are some amazing designers out there. When I was young, we waited with real great expectation about the latest Woman's Weekly or Woman's Own, I think the magazines were called. And there was always a pattern in there. If we liked it, we'd make it. Or my mother would. And there's something cosy about hand knitted items, isn't there? Of course, they aren't cheap, and that's the reality. They're very time consuming, and the yarn is not the cheapest yarn. Well, you can get cheap yarn, but it's not really worth putting all the effort in unless if it's a craft project. So would you like for me to start with a completed item? I have a whole range of completed items that I can share with you. Bear with me 1 minute while I get organised. So this is I hope you can see that quite easily. Okay, this is a very beautiful pattern by Melissa Leapman. And I purchased this from Ravelry, which is one of the best places for me to go and have a nosy at patterns. And this is this beautiful jumper that has been completed for my stepchild. I really like Aran. I like complex knitting. I also like stocking stitch. Okay, but what we've got here is moss stitch, two layers of moss stitch. We've got lots of cables and we've got twisted ribs. My favourite thing about this was the fact that the sleeve cable extended up into the shoulder. So you've got this beautiful shoulder arrangement, which I've never ever made before. And I think you can see that for knitters, this will explain a lot. Okay. I've learned so many things since watching other podcasts, and I'm staggered. I'm apparently an English knitter because I throw my yarn. And then there's continental knitting where they use the left hand. And then there's a variety of different ways. So if you aren't a knitter and it's something you're interested in, then there are plenty of people out there teaching you how to knit. Okay. Some of my greatest influences, I think there was one called Katie Green from the Green Bean, and she taught me, and this is the work in progress that I'm on at the moment, she taught me that when you're working in the round, to actually work from the inside. It's just, well, let me turn it round for you. Okay. So that would be working from the outside. It's exactly the same. But if you work from the inside, then that means that the threads that you're carrying in colour work actually are always going to be long enough. And there's Oreo saying hello. How lovely of Oreo to join us. So this is a very, very beautiful sweater that is from the neck down. It's yoke, it's Nordic, and I will show you the pattern. Now this was from Garnstudio, which offer you free patterns. Garnstudio.com, Garn Studio. I'll put the link below. And here we are, have a Nordic. I cannot work this out how to do that, so you can see, there we go. a beautiful Nordic sweater. I'm using Drops Alaska and Drops Nepal, which are ethically sourced yarns where the sheep are in natural environment, and there's something called museling, which means they cut the hair near the tail. They don't do any of that. So it's very ethically sourced yarn from well looked after sheep. And it is very inexpensive, and I buy that from Wool Warehouse. Again, that's a UK company, and I know that they ship internationally because one of the lovely ladies that I watch bought some yarn she was short of from it, who lives in America. So that's my work in progress, and I'm really excited about that. But knitting podcasters tend to show you all of their stuff, and they give you all of the names of their yarns. Genuinely, I wouldn't remember most things. So I use these wonderful little project bags, which keeps me a tad organised. I'm a creative, and trust me, I'm not organised. And I'm making, strangely, a little white rabbit. Now, I believe this Easter bunny was a free pattern at some point. It's by a lady named Claire Garland, who also goes under the business name of Dot Pebbles. It's a superb little rabbit. When I chose Follow the White Rabbit, it was because I'm a bit of a Matrix fan. And I like the first one the most. I haven't seen the fourth one. Don't spoil it for me. And I think there's something about being curious that really got me. I am highly curious. I'm sure I was born curious. And if there's something to explore, I will explore it. It's like knots in my knitting, really. And, you know, I will love undoing knots in my knitting. Occasionally I have to cut them, it's true. But generally speaking, I really enjoy the exploration of imagination. Where would that path lead? You know, that's just who I am. So I think that's why I love The Matrix and, of course, Alice. And I'm really excited to see how deep this rabbit hole goes. So back to the knitting. So this is a white rabbit. When I chose the name White Rabbit, Follow the White Rabbit, I had no idea that it was the year of the rabbit. And also my friend has decided to have a party called the Mad Hatter Tea Party this year. So I'm making her a little white bunny. It's a very beautiful pattern. I've made it many, many times. This is the bobtail. This is the neck and the head. And it's going to be its little face. They really are the cutest things. And I'm just using some yarn out of my stash. I think it was 4-ply baby yarn, unsure of the name of it. And I wound it together as a double so that it's a slightly bigger rabbit. The bigger the yarn, the bigger the needles, the larger the item. I do love making toys and make a lot. And when I do a crochet session, I will show you and introduce you to the crochet toys I make through patterns and also design myself. I do find crochet much easier to design with. I've never tried knitting patterns really. And I think that's because I was never that curious about knitting. I just followed the pattern. And there's something intrinsically powerful and meditative about knitting one stitch at a time. So my next project, or the final knitting project, are a pair of socks. Again, this was from Garnstudio. And I'll be honest, I'm not fond of the pattern. I'm not a big sock knitter. I've only ever knitted 2 socks before. And the pattern, which I seem to have lost, I think it was on a pattern band, a wool band, was much nicer than this. But it's free, it works, and that's all that matters. So let me show you one of the socks. Okay, this is the finished item. And I had to undo the first sock, and there's a little video which I will implant into here because the very first sock I knitted was too big and it was falling off. So I'm now knitting the final sock. This is a truly beautiful yarn. Okay, absolutely gorgeous. And again from Wool Warehouse, Drops Fabel, superwash treated wool sock wool. I'm using, oh actually maybe this is why. This has 3mm hook or needle, and I was using 3.5 because that's what the pattern said. So I think that's probably why that first sock was too big. Anyway, I should have gone smaller, it would seem. So that is all of my knitting projects. And I don't know how long you've got to stay here. So I thought that you could, if you want, with your just sitting down and having fun and relaxing, I thought if you want to just sit and watch me knit, I'll turn the sound off and then I will overwrite a mindful meditation. So this is not a religious thing. It's just this really beautiful way to start being a human being. And even if I'm knitting, I am still being. I know I'm doing, but I'm being. My mind is on this one stitch at a time. I keep my focus very soft. And so what I want to do is introduce you to a way that you can use as a tool, a resilience tool, just to calm yourself or just to sit in peace. So whatever you're doing, you could put your feet up if you want. You can carry on with your project if you want. And I'd like you to sit right at the end of this video and join me in a mindful meditation. But for those who will leave me now, I would like to say thank you for joining me on the very first of my podcasts. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed Oreo at the beginning, and there'll be some right at the end after the meditation. And, you know, please, I ask you to like, subscribe and comment, if you will, just so that more people can find this. We all need an oasis of calm in our day. So whenever I make a video, and I hope to make one once a week, just grab your own project or grab your favourite drink and just sit and enjoy chatting with me, learning with me, growing with me, and making some interesting things. If you want a behind the scenes style video that isn't as quite staged as this, then please join me on Patreon. So you can have a look underneath. All of the links to everything I've talked about are going to be underneath this video, where you can comment as well. And if you would like my newsletter, there's a link to my website. I only give out one newsletter a month, so you're not going to be bombarded. And that has all sorts of links to things that I do that are free and paid, but mostly everything you need will be here or in Patreon. Thank you for joining me. I'm just now going to put a little video in of me undoing this ball of wool, this sock, sorry, I'll speak again, as I unravel the old sock that was too large. So bear with me, and then I'll be back in a moment to lead you in a mindful meditation. Thank you. Bless you. There are times in life when we don't get things right. Is this the time to beat ourselves up? Is this the time to compromise? Or is this the time to quietly and lovingly and gently unravel that mistake? I think one of the things that knitting has taught me over the years is that it's one tiny stitch at a time. There is no rush. There's no pressure. The idea is that you just gently and quietly and mindfully create one stitch at a time. This was the first sock that I made. And then I made another sock with a different size pin needles. And the reason I did that was because the needles I created this on broke and I hadn't got a replacement. When it came to finishing this sock, in actual fact, this sock was miles too big. So the second sock on smaller pins was by far the best one for me. So this one is being undone. And you see, you get knots like this. And the knot is because I made a poor stitch. Can you see how this stitch is through this previous stitch? And sometimes we just have to cut it away and carry on. Now that is going to weaken my knitting. So that isn't going to be beneficial. And so therefore what I'm going to do is actually cut the whole thing. I'm not undoing this. Some problems don't need undoing, but I will not destroy it because if I'm short of yarn, then I have got this extra little bit that I can use for another project. So in life, think about knitting. And with all of your problems that happen, or if you make mistakes, remember that you can always undo things. And I'm really excited to be recreating this sock on the smaller knitting pins. So I will actually have a pair. And as you find yourself sitting, maybe with your feet up, focus in on your body, straighten your spine a little, and just check whether your body is comfortable. Maybe just lift your chin and smile. That's a really good thing to do to help your body know that something good is going to happen. And what I'd like you to do is look around your room at something that brings you great joy. Something that holds good memories. And for a moment, I'd just like you to soft focus on that item. Bringing to mind all of the feelings, the sounds, the sensations of the very first time that you saw that. Notice the beauty of it. And allow yourself that wonderful moment to remember. Almost lock those wonderful feelings and memories into your mind so that every time you look at that specific item, you can feel that wonderful feeling again. And as you soft focus your eyes on that item, I'd like you to focus on your breath, how it feels as the air comes in and out of your body. Maybe notice the temperature. Notice the feelings. And maybe notice how far the breath goes into your body. I wonder if you can slow your breathing down a little. And notice what happens to your body when you do slow that breath down. There are many things you can do with your breath that can help you. Your breath can help you to be calm, help you to prepare, and help you to recover. And as you begin to take control of your breath, you can start to control the thoughts that surround you. Thinking about the breath that you take when you're walking or running. The breath that you take when you're by the sea or by a large body of water, watching the lapping of the water on the edge. Maybe the breath that you take when you're really excited. You see, breath is a doorway that you have complete control over. And there's one thing you can do to really support your health and well-being. And that is by taking control of your breath. As you breathe in and breathe out, take time now to breathe into your body through your nose. Notice the difference of how you feel when you breathe in through the nose. And if you can breathe out through the nose, even better, to find that delicious and wonderful place of calm. And you can practice this every day. And notice what you notice. And now we're going to open our eyes if you have closed. Take a stretch And we're going to finish this podcast with Oreo and her stick.